since it's the first time over there that we will actually play something from all the albums from the whole discography.
Easy answer for what was the most difficult part is the Ways of Sulphur.
Yeah, as you said, it's the change, it's the constant.
And then they released the third and fourth album, and I was originally quite shocked at what's happening.
We didn't write the song with that in mind, but when it was done, the album, it actually started feeling, as you said, it's like a teaser for the whole album.
Black album vinyl, the original one it's maybe the first vinyl I ever bought. That's kind of, well, it's really important to me.
Hello, everyone. Together with us are Mathias and Kauko from Finnish band Oceans, and we're talking with them just a couple days before they hop on the plane and get here to United States to perform at Maryland Deathfest. So, hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
As I just mentioned, you're heading to Maryland Deathfest, and I believe for Oceans, it's the first performance, official performance in the United States.
Yes, it is. And first, not unofficial either. It's the first official and the first show ever.
And the Maryland Deathfest has pretty diverse lineup in terms of genres. It has thrash metal. It has like this year they're gonna have Creator, but then you also have Napalm Death and Rotting Christ, and your music is pretty diverse too. So how do you approach your set list for this specific concert and also for festivals in general where you might have a lot of people who never heard you before?
Well, we decided, since it's the first time over there, that we will actually play something from all the albums from the whole discography. So there will be not probably equal representation, but at least some songs from every album. And to give all like the old fans and the new fans, a good show.
Yeah. Pretty much same thing when we go to let's say a country where we never played. This is something that we want to do, give something to everyone, hopefully. Not just concentrating on the latest album.
So let's talk a little bit about your latest album. It came out a year ago in May of 2025. And I know in previous interviews you've been calling it a synthesis of the whole discography of the different eras of Oceans. And how did they actually work during the writing process? Like, were you conscious about which song which have like which side, more simple black, more electronic? How was the writing process?
Well, we didn't really concentrate on that. Usually it's what comes out at the moment, but the writing process, we have been actually doing the same for the 3 comeback albums now, that 3 of the guys in the band, they write riffs and melodies, and then we get together at some point and put let's say like they made like pre-production demos, and then we get together and get some kind of demos done. Then we send it in the group, and Kauko, for example, adds the drums, and then either keyboards or guitars later, and then bass, and lastly usually the vocals on these. So it's kind of like we're sending it back and forth a bit between the band in using
a lot of remote working, since we live, well, not all across Finland, but there's quite a lot of distance between me and Pyry, our bass player. We live in the capital area, and then Mathias and Timo and Teemu, guitar players, they live in Pietarsaari. It's what is Mathias? 500 kilometers almost.
Yeah, 550 something.
Between us. Yeah, something like that. So obviously we are not having gatherings in the rehearsal place all the time. So sending files, projects back and forth, and everyone trying to put their input.
And then at some point we usually get together and actually try to play them a little bit as well to find out, yeah.
So how does prepping for the concert and rehearsing work with such big differences, like distance 500 kilometers between you?
Well, we get together a couple of times every year to rehearse, and then we have these call them rehearsal tapes that we have like rehearsal demos, backtracks that we can actually individually then rehearse with. So that's a great thing. We have like with a click track, so Kauko can rehearse with them, and I can just mute the vocals, and then I can sing with them here at home. So that's a good thing that we made those. That actually made the whole process kind of easier for a lot of people. So it's a lot of like rehearsing on your own, but then a couple of times each year, especially if we are taking some new songs into the set list, then we get together and try to play those.
Mathias, you mentioned in one of the earlier interviews that your keyboard player, Antti, pushed the keyboards towards more electronic sound on this album, and that also kind of forced you to rewrite some of the portions or rethink some of the vocal takes on the album. So like how, because maybe the original ones did not quite fit well. And can you take us through that process? Like what was working and what did you have to change?
Well, it was on the second comeback album, St. Gardens and Tombs. It was more of a like melodic, atmospheric black metal album, and I did quite a lot of how to say, like high pitched screaming on that album. And on this one, also the guitar riffs they went a little bit more aggressive on the latest album. So that actually I was sort of in the St. Gardens and Tombs mentality. So a lot of the demos that I did in the beginning was like kind of high pitched black metal vocals, but then when the material started coming together, it needed something else because all of a sudden there's a lot of different sounds that we haven't incorporated, in a while. So it made me feel like that it was too like symphonic black metal, too way that with my vocals. So I needed to rethink a lot of it, and then in the end I took down the pitch quite a lot, and I started experimenting a little bit also with like vocoders and stuff like that. Even put some clean vocals on this album. Yeah, it needed to fit the album, fit the music.
And now question for Kauko, because in terms of drums, there are also like songs can have 3-4 different feels. Like this changes or intro can be very like, I don't know, even call it trip hoppy, right? And then it turns into the fast black metal. So like what was the main challenge for you for the new songs? Was it like stitching it all together, making sure that transitions are pretty smooth, or like not knowing even when to play the drums?
Easy answer for what was the most difficult part is the Ways of Sulphur. That song took more takes in studio than probably, I don't know. It's easily the most difficult one I ever had to record. And that's only because of me being so focused on fast playing pretty much all the, well, too long. So it's not the only one. Let's say that combining really slow and really fast stuff is difficult for me, but then having a song which is kind of totally out of my, how to say it,
Comfort zone.
yeah. That song is so kind of requiring you to lay down probably much more than I did in the studio. But anyways, that kind of stuff is really difficult for me. Also, let's say that even though the guys always give me totally free hands to do whatever I want, let's say that this album, from the 3 that I played with And Oceans, this was the probably the one where I got most comments from the other guys. Not saying that someone was telling me that you're playing sucks or that doesn't fit at all, but maybe the original idea with the songwriters was something different than what I had played in the first demos. So this definitely took the most effort in, musically. It's always difficult when it's so fast. It's quite demanding physically, but again, playing fast is something that's the easy part. Let's say that this is the most maybe complex album from my perspective. It's still like it's not progressive in like musical terms, but there's much more different feelings in drumming compared to the previous 2 ones. Yeah.
And how do you translate that to the shows? Do you also, as all the, let's say, EBM music rhythm parts, do you use backing tracks for those? Or are you actually able to play those as well as your metal drumming?
Yeah, the actual, there's this techno bass drum in the songs that obviously comes from backing tracks, because there's like a drum beat on top of that all the time. So obviously I cannot play all that same time, and I don't even want to. It's they are electronic beats. They are not supposed to sound like human played or live. They are supposed to sound like a machine. So it's better to use backing tracks for such drums.
Now let's thinking and talking about the whole discography of the band. Also changed the names, and I will not ask you about changing the name. I know that was before your times, outside of your control. And but I think if you look at And Oceans, I think the only constant thing with And Oceans music is the change. It keeps always changing. And do you think the band found its sound right now, or the door is still open to some completely new experiments?
I don't think that, yeah, as you said, it's the change, it's the constant. So I think that's a thing that we're gonna spin further on and not really settle in some kind of And Oceans box. I think that would be actually kind of a bad decision to do and start making, the same album over and over again just because this was let's call it a big album, a successful album. So I think it's there'll be a constant metamorphosis of And Oceans. I don't think we will find a sound.
Yeah, I agree totally. Yeah, actually, when you earlier asked about if there was something different when writing this album, again, not really, but there was this. Let's say that at least I personally felt that we cannot keep doing the same thing. I'm not saying that Cosmic Word Mother and Asingard and So Many Tombs are identical. Definitely not. They are quite different. But let's say that the overall soundscape is quite close, and there was we didn't change much. But I think as a person who listened to the band as a teenager back then when the guys released the first albums, and then they released the third and fourth album, and I was originally quite shocked at what's happening. I feel that that's something that we, not saying that we need to do that, but that's something that we need to look through. We need to check this card that maybe there's something that we can change of course, the baseline is good riffs, good songs, but as Matthias said, there's not a box where you can put this band, where you should put this band. At least not if you're not like beating it totally broken and transforming it some other thing, but I don't know.
And your on the last album, the opening track, Inertiae, I think it for me it kind of sounds like the teaser of the album, because there are some like rapid stops and it completely changes. So was it your intention to make it as intro, so immediately throw at people, okay, this is what's gonna happen if you don't like it? Maybe that's where you stop.
Well, we didn't write the song with that in mind, but you know, when it was done, the album, it actually started feeling, as you said, it's like a teaser for the whole album. I think it's got the fast tempo, so the black metal stuff, but it's got the electronic stuff as well. It's got that kind of atmospheric ambient parts as well. So it kind of describes the album, and that's why we put it out as the first single and also as the intro track. But also it was a little bit, you know, to throw people off guard a little bit, like what are these guys doing this time, you know, to sort of spark a little bit of a, let's call it a conversation. And I think it was the right thing to do, actually, because there was a lot of comments about it, and in a very good way, and then, you know, the second single and the next track on the album is more what you are used to with the new and ocean stuff. So I think it was a great decision to do this.
Let's talk about the visual side of your albums. So the last two albums, they don't have, I think even 3 albums, they don't have the band name and the album name on the covers, which is like pretty typical. I think a lot of bands try to put their logo as visible as possible. They can also, the bands can recognize the logo, but you decided against this. Also, I think for me, the last 2 covers, maybe even just the last one, probably the best from your whole discography. I think I like it the most. And so the decision not to have your logo and the album name on the cover, what did you want to bring with that? So I'm sure it was a conscious decision.
Yeah, it was a conscious decision, and that was actually a decision made mostly from our graphic designer Adrian, that made these 3 album covers. And I really, you know, when I worked with him, when we have worked with him, when he told us why, and I also think to put the logo on there as big as possible, and the title of the album, that would actually sort of break the whole album cover. It's, you know, it's like a painting, you know. So it's, if Picasso would have signed Picasso, like it would, you know, it would take away from the artwork. You know, it's yeah, let's not destroy it. It's a painting.
Yeah, definitely. The way how I don't know, maybe Matthias has talked more about the thematics and everything, obviously, because you're responsible for the lyrics and that stuff. But let's say that it has been really nice to see how easily someone who's not a member of the band can, you know, translate this art to different formats. And I don't actually remember we having any kind of discussion about having the logo or not, but for me it feels like definitely not after seeing the artwork.
I think it was actually only before Cosmic World Mother that we had the discussion about putting the logo or not, and then
Yeah,
it
maybe.
was more
Yeah.
like should we go with the same and no logo on this one? And like I was like, yep, let's do that.
So you are now on Season of Mist label, and also in Oceans from the very beginning were on this label, and then switched to Century Media, and now back on it. And I, of course, will not ask you to compare to eras. You were not there for the first 2 albums. But how does it feel to be on Season of Mist now? And I'm sure it's like completely different from back in the day where they were just starting, and now it's more mature label.
I think that we couldn't really get a better label for this right now, because it's one of those that they have the bands, you know, they have a little bit more like artistic bands over there. And one thing that I really like, I've been signed to a lot of record labels during my time, and I really like with these guys that they answer really fast. You know, if you have a question about something, then you get an answer within 24 hours. That's something that, you know, most labels don't really do. And also that we are kind of, let's call it like high up on their roster, so that, you know, that we don't really drown in, you know, a flood of bigger bands over there. And I think that's really important. And when we looked at the sales of the albums, especially in the beginning, it was like, whoa, do we actually, you know, can they get us this well out there? And you know, they took a chance with us after, you know, 18 years of no new music to sign Endocians, and did a really good job, and we sold a lot of albums. So I think that I'm really happy.
Yeah, I agree totally. Like, not even a small reason to complain about anything. It's been, the communication is very fluent, really, you know, straight. Also, for me, it feels like this is the label which suits us, because they can provide us promotion like really good, really well, and at the same time they are handling everything very professionally, everything, and still not saying anything to us about the artistic side. We can basically do whatever we want. So this is, I would say that this is probably quite rare combination, but also it's definitely something that we need as a band. A huge thank you for Season of Mist once again.
That's great. And you mentioned sales. It's actually interesting that and I think like as a fan who likes music, how I got to Season of Mist shop just earlier this year is like on Spotify when you listen to the band, and I listen to like Shape of Despair old stuff, right? And then I click, I see the links that sell you like vinyls and merch right there in Spotify. So you click here in Season of Mist shop. Same with even YouTube videos. They like do well all these details, all these small combinations where I don't see like other bands or labels doing that.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and I really liked working on the last album with them, because then they really wanted to take the concept of the album and put it also into the products as well. That was really cool, and not just make some kind of like, yeah, let's put out CD and maybe a digipack and, you know, this and this. They really wanted to make the packaging, you know, something extra, and really, you know, like hands-on kind of approach, and contacting me, you know, which talking a lot with people. They gave me, you know, their own phone numbers, so we can talk in WhatsApp about like, yeah, about the concept and how to include it in the packaging, which is kind of rare.
Yeah, I agree. It's let's say that since the physical sales are not going up probably nowadays, unfortunately, having the label to, you know, they want to come up with something special. Like this is from the, not the latest, but this As in Gardens, so in Tombs, the special CD, which also we made with the latest album. This is, you know, it's not something that you expect to happen. Even though, as Matthias mentioned, the sales have been good, but they're still, you know, we are not Lady Gaga or Metallica sales-wise. So let's say that for me, at least personally, it was quite a surprise that the label wanted to do like a real special version of the CD. It's really cool. And also having something, not just like, you know, throwing a digipack in a bigger box and selling it with like a higher price, but actually including some special items. So really nice.
And the physical sales actually going up a little bit. I saw an article earlier this year that for the first time since I think 70s or 80s, the vinyl sales in I think just in US they passed 1 billion. I think it was $1 billion. Yeah. So because
Okay.
vinyl is
Nice.
coming back, as we can see behind Kauko, he has an extensive collection, and even tapes are coming back, which was also crazy for me to see in the last couple of years. A lot of bands releasing new albums on tapes.
Yeah, I also have a shitload of tapes somewhere, but they're not showing in the picture.
You all have multiple bands, and now Kauko is in different bands. Matthias is also a vocalist in Fintroll. How do you uh, work around the scheduling, especially like tour scheduling with all these different bands? Do you have some different priority for specific bands? How does that all work?
Oof. Yeah, that's a long answer, but yeah. Let's it has been a jigsaw puzzle, you know. I can't lie. But yeah, I'm taking it kind of easy on the gigging front right now, and so taking a little bit of like how to say it, personal time off. So I'm not touring that much right now. So so right now it's pretty easy to fit in gigs for me, but yeah, but it definitely has been a puzzle.
Yeah, it's well, let's say that And Oceans is the only band I play in where, let's say that we have quite many shows every year. Not a lot compared to many bands that are touring all the time, but for me personally, it's quite a many shows. And personally, I couldn't have another band having as many shows. All the daily work and such are obviously limiting my time. But yeah, of course it's some scheduling and luckily there has been not that many shows cancelled or let's say that I haven't had so many gigs where I had to refuse to play because I had some other show on the same day, but it happens sometimes, and obviously what was agreed first, that's the priority one usually. Of course, if there's, let's say that if I had a situation where we had just like one random show with And Oceans somewhere in Finland, and then there would be a tour with one of my other bands at the same time, then we would obviously have some kind of a discussion if we could somehow agree to, cancel the show. But luckily there hasn't been a need for that so far.
Now the forward-looking one, and like you released your last album a year ago. Do you already have something in the works? Are you already actively working on new material?
Oh yeah, and as Timo said that it's a constant process. In one of the interviews we did the other day. But yeah, we have made a couple of let's call them pre demos. You know, it's and they're really in the first really basic form. Uh, some of them only have like keyboards and machine drums. Some have guitars and there's riffs, there's melodies, and it's a bit scattered right now. And I think I have 2 lyrics down, something like that. So we will actually maybe this summer have a get together to get like the first actual pre demos or like the actual together. So it's and we are far from really focusing on writing, but there are ideas.
For me personally, I haven't, had time to do to record any actual demo drums. I will listen to some of the keyboard tracks with like a drum machine, and well, as Mathias mentioned, some of them have guitars also, and I have some, trying to get the idea, and some of them which are kind of, let's say, strange sounding for me. I've tried to, focus on them because I don't want to end up having the same situation as I mentioned with the Ways of Sulphur in the latest album. The most style-wise, the most difficult one for me. I hopefully learned that I need to focus on that kind of songs like really early. And there's been some keyboard demos which I was first like, this is not going to happen. But then I listened to them quite many times and kind of got the idea, and I have these ideas in my head, but let's see if they work. But this is what we mentioned. It's a lot of remote working, and usually it like things progress quite quickly when at least part of the group get together and work on the original demos. And I'm sure it's going to happen. It's going to probably be quite fluid since we have practiced this for like 3 albums already. So
Yeah, exactly.
But
just need to find the time for it.
we're recording this interview Monday, May 18th, and just in a couple of days, it's end of this week, you'll be flying to United States to Maryland Deathfest. So assuming most of the crowd there probably will see you for the first time, what do you want them to take from this concert, from your show?
Well, I really hope that they will take that they actually, heard some of the stuff that they really came there for to hear. And as we told before, that we will play something from all the albums. So we hope that, that most of the people will be happy about, the setlist that we did. That's
I hope to see that the people who come to see us, they at least most of them get what they want. I know that if there are people who have listened to the band from the start and there's 7 albums, most likely there will be people who don't hear the one song that they want because limited time. But let's hope that they still get something that they want.
Kauko, I see the big collection of vinyls behind you. What's your most valuable one? Like, doesn't necessarily mean the price, but the one that has the biggest emotional value for you.
There's a lot of them. Let's say that as someone who started to listen to Metallica as a quite small kid, let's say that since Black Album vinyl, the original one it's maybe the first vinyl I ever bought. That's kind of, well, it's really important to me. Then there's a lot of them. First Funeral Mist, full length, first Death Spell Omega. There's a lot of them.
Matthias, do you listen to music on like physical music or mostly streaming?
Oh yeah, I do. I have but mine is downstairs actually in the living room. So that's where my albums are. So but yeah, there's well, if you really like it, if we talk about the price, then it's probably the first Fintroll album, from '99. I have the first print on vinyl, and it's hand numbered, and I have number 2 of it. So that's probably the one that's most valuable in money. But if I got actually, well, a couple of years back, I got my dad's old record collection. He was about to put it in like a flea market for like just a small sum of money. And I told him, no, I can't, I'll take it. And he was like, what? Do you really want these old ones? I was like, yep. So I really want them. So in there's some really, let's say, like childhood memory kind of things, like a really, really early press of Pink Floyd's The Wall, for example. That's probably one of the really, 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 let's say, like emotionally valuable to me.
Okay, thank you a lot for your time today. Thank you for your answers, and hope everything goes smoothly. You get on the plane, you'll fly here to States, and have a great show at the Maryland Deathfest.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
TheMetalList.com. Subscribe.